Yeah, I'm live again. All right, cool. Um, Sorry to the viewers. I had to cut the last part of the live stream short because YouTube, um, has certain restrictions on videos. If they consider that a video is not wholesome for youth or young people. And I want the channel to be accessible to young people, of course. But of course, so one of the brothers, Cameron Irving, he put me on. So he was like, "Yo, they not they not letting us comment on the video or nothing like that." So I want comments to come on to the video. So I'm gonna start back from where I started off before and keep it moving. Okay, and I'm gonna delete the the first live stream that I was doing on this episode, which is on Masonic Mathematics. So I received a message from brother Rodrigo Diaz. And he said, I'm a Prince Hole Mason in the Navy that's about to deploy. What would be some great books on esoteric masonry I can read while I'm building out east? So I'll reiterate to brother Rodrigo Diaz. Send me an email. My email address is in the about section of this YouTube channel. My email address is majestymontanez@gmail.com. Also, brother Diaz, um, download WhatsApp if you don't already have it downloaded. Download it. And my phone number, so you know, is 347-740-9462. So download WhatsApp, add my number, um, and that's my email address. Holla at me through there, and I'll send you free books without question. I'll send you free books. Also, um, let me know while you're deployed, what the status is. I know how it is. I have brother Masons whom I deal with who are in the military, and I know how it is. It's rare in the military, so you may need some money, things like that. So you can holler at me, and I'll look out for you for sure. We'll get together with Blue Majestic Masons. We're more, as far as our charity or relief is concerned, we're more about the brotherhood, the brethren. So um, let me know, send me that message, and we'll look out for you. You know what I mean? So ain't no thing with that. So I received certain good feedback from our last episode, which was on the struggle of Jacob and the covenant of Abraham. So we received a lot of good feedback on that, which was cool, which was good. We're dealing with Freemasonry and we're building. Earlier today, I had to come on late tonight. I'm in New York City, so it's very late out here. Um, Certain viewers who may be on the West Coast, on the South Coast, they may come on because the time frame is a little bit different. We have a few hours difference in our time frame. We had a meeting earlier as far as my lodge, and we were building upon Persephone, the Eleusinian mysteries of ancient Greece, Persephone, and the symbolism behind that and what it has to do with us building as Freemasons. So um, we're gonna keep it moving. With who's that? Mars World 777. How can I join the Masons? How can I join the Masons? To ask one, be one. I would tell you that. If you know a Freemason, can I be a freelance Mason? I already feel like a Mason on the inside. Uh, you can't really be a freelance Mason because in the customs and traditions of Freemasonry, you should belong to a lodge. There are times when there's an exception to that, but you should belong to a Masonic lodge. So in order to become a Mason, just ask a Mason. That's how you get in. But as I stated earlier in our meeting, we dealt with Persephone and the Eleusinian mysteries of ancient Greece and how that pertains to Freemasonry. So it was good. It was a very good build, and we'll continue on with that. So now let's get into our main subject at hand. Do the Masons have anything to do with the globalists? What are the Masonic views on the New World Order? You'll have to the individual who asked that, you'll have to study Masonry as far as the concept of the New World Order. I'll tell you that. I'm going to proceed, but if you want to mention more, mention it, and trust me, I'll come back to whatever it is that you're stating. So, tonight's subject, tonight's topic is going to be Masonic Mathematics. Now, this is a good subject. It's an important subject. All right? Now, Freemasonry. Every Freemason knows that Freemasonry is synonymous with the term geometry, right? So let me show the symbol. We're going to get deep. We're going to get busy tonight. All right. This is forget about the Holy Bible word in it. This is the universal emblem of Freemasonry, right? The compass, the square, and the letter G, right? One of the meanings of the letter G in Freemasonry is geometry. And geometry is, of course, a branch of mathematics, right? Cool. So, you have, of course, in the world of Freemasonry, you have a lot of social club organizations, so social club lodges, whom do not teach Freemasonry. They don't. An alias of Freemasonry is geometry, which is a branch of mathematics. Now, in order to understand why this is so, you have to be a true student of Freemasonry. You have to study Freemasonry. You have to live the life of a Freemason. And if you do that, you'll understand that Freemasonry is an ancient mystery school. An ancient mystery school. Now, in studying the ancient mysteries, you'll come across the teachings of Plato, a Greek philosopher who wrote many books. He was very profound. And in his tradition of teaching, it is said that in his school, which was known as the Academy, right? Plato lived in the 300s BC, approximately. That would be about 2,320 years ago or so. It is said that in his school, which was known as the academy, there was a saying above the entrance door that let he who is not familiar with geometry enter. Let he who is not familiar with geometry enter. So, in order to come amongst Plato in his school, you would have to be familiar with geometry. Oh, Brother Malcolm Prophet is on right before the Arabic language in 200 BC. I don't know. You will have to elaborate upon that, Brother Malcolm. Um, so, the point I'm making in this is that mathematics are important in the ancient mystery teachings and the ancient mystery schools. Besides Plato, you have, of course, Pythagoras, who was an ancient Greek initiate slash philosopher. Pythagoras, who was well known for having taught mathematics, Mars World 777. A lot of the conspiracy theories about Masonry give me second thoughts, but I hope it's not true. I don't know. You'll have to ask me about certain conspiracies. So mathematics are important to Freemasonry. Many of the great teachers of philosophy, science, mysticism, etc., were believers in the fact that mathematics, the study of mathematics, is a key to understanding the mysteries of the universe. So let me get into that and how it applies to Masonic curriculum. I'll try my best on this channel to give certain lectures that reflect Masonic curriculum. I am that I am. The information is not kept and is given to you via a stick. Okay, but let's get into that. So again, the universal emblem of Freemasonry is the square, right, and the compass, and the letter G in the center. These are geometric tools. So, as a Freemason, you have to ask yourself, do you understand this? Do you understand symbolic geometry? Do you understand symbolic mathematics? When we look at those tools, forget about the emblem as it may stand on your ring or anything like that. Let's look at those tools, the square and the compass. Here you have a compass, right? The compass. The compass is a tool of geometry. It's a tool of geometry. Then you have the square, right? Which is also a tool of geometry. This is important. So now let's get into geometry. In the ancient mystery schools, you have basic geometry, which is called plane geometry. And you have solid geometry, which is advanced geometry. And Freemasonry, plane geometry is reserved for the enter apprentice degree, the first degree of Freemasonry. And solid geometry is reserved for the fellowcraft degree of Freemasonry. This is important. So let's get into some of the teachings of plane geometry in this episode. Let me also mention that in religion in general, you will see various references towards Freemasonry as a spiritual path. You'll see it in the Bible. You'll see certain references in biblical scripture to God being a geometrician or a mathematician. You'll see it in the book of Amos, chapter 7, verse 7, Most Freemasons are familiar with that passage where, it's said that God has a plumb line in his hand. Um, there are different biblical passages that refer to, God creating the universe using the compass, which is this tool here that I just showed you, the compass, which is used for drawing circles. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's go. The basics of plane geometry. Here you have the geometric square, right? Before I even get into that, let me go into Masonic ritual first, and then I'll progress. Let me get into Masonic ritual, Malcolm Prophet, words of life, religion, math, marriage, etc. Okay. Let me go into Masonic ritual, and then I'll proceed from there. In the second degree of Freemasonry, which is the fellowcraft degree, we have reference in the words of the ritual to geometry, right? In the second degree of Freemasonry in the ritual, the Masonic symbol known as the letter G is highlighted. It's highlighted, and we're taught, at least in the ritual of the second degree, that the letter G stands for God and geometry, right? So let me go into some of the words that are typically found in the ritual in America, right? In regards to geometry. The ritual, generally speaking, tells us in the second degree that geometry treats of the powers and properties of magnitudes in general, where length, breadth, and thickness are considered from a point to a line, from a line to a superficies, and from a superficies to a solid. A point is a dimensionless figure or an indivisible part of space. A line is a point continued and a figure of one capacity, namely length. A superficies is a figure of two dimensions, namely length and breadth. A solid is a figure of three dimensions, namely length, breadth, and thickness. Then the ritual will go into the advantages of geometry. By this science, geometry, the architect is enabled to construct his plans and execute his designs. The general to arrange his soldiers, the engineer to mark out ground for encampments, the geographer to give us the dimensions of the world, and all things therein contained, to delineate the extent of seas and specify the divisions of empires, kingdoms, and provinces. By geometry also, the astronomer is enabled to make his observations and to fix the duration of times and seasons, years, and cycles. In fine, geometry is the foundation of architecture and the root of mathematics. Then we're told, in regards to geometry, from this theme, we proceed to illustrate the moral advantages of geometry, a subject on which the following observations may not be unacceptable. Geometry, the first and noblest of sciences, is the basis on which the superstructure of Freemasonry is erected. By geometry, we may curiously trace nature through her various windings to her most concealed recesses. By it, we discover the power, the wisdom, and the goodness of the grand artificer of the universe, God, and view with delight the proportions which connect this vast machine. By geometry, we discover how the planets move in their different orbits and demonstrate their various revolutions. By it, we account for the return of the seasons and the variety of scenes which each season displays to the discerning eye. Numberless worlds are around us, all framed by the same divine artist, which roll through the vast expanse and are all conducted by the same unerring law of nature. A survey of nature and the observation of her beautiful proportions first determined man to imitate the divine plan and to study symmetry and order. This gave rise to societies and birth to every useful art. The architect began to design, and the plans which he laid down, being improved by experience and time, have produced works which are the admiration of every age. So that those words are typical words that you'll hear in the ritual of the fellowcraft degree of Freemasonry, at least in America. So in the beginning of those words, I don't want to call them lectures. I don't like to use that term. Lectures are really what the worshipful master of a lodge gives in a Masonic meeting, but there are certain verbal lessons given in the rituals of I would say in general, the initiation rituals of the 3 degrees of Freemasonry, right? So there was a part in there that I just mentioned that talked about creation taking place through geometry, and it mentions that creation goes through a stage of beginning from a point to a line to a superficies to a solid. This is important. So let me show you these symbols right here real quick. All right. Here you have the point, right? In geometry, you have a point. The point in symbolic geometry or sacred geometry represents dimensionlessness. It represents unity. It represents the original primordial consciousness from which all creation proceeds. It has no dimension. It doesn't have length. It doesn't have width, breadth, any of that. The point is singularity. It represents our essence, our true nature. And Freemasonry gets deeper into that in the Master Mason's degree. But let me proceed. So you have here the point, right? Then you have the line, right? So the line proceeds from the point. Now a line consists of 2 points, right? It can represent either width, as you see here, or length. It consists of 2 aspects, 2 points, right? So let me proceed and I'll go into this mystically. So in geometry, any figure starts off first from a point, a singularity. Then it proceeds to a line. And from the line, it proceeds to a superficies. Now, superficies simply means a surface. That's all the word superficies means, a surface. It's kind of an antiquated word, but for the new Freemasons, I'll give it to you in plain language. A superficies means a surface, which is a 2-dimensional figure. As you see here in geometry, it would be a square, it could be a triangle, it could be a circle, etc. And after the superficies or the plane surface, you have the solid. The solid is a three-dimensional figure. So let's say in this example, you have the point, the beginning of any geometrical figure. Then you have the line. Then you have the surface, the superficies, and then you have the solid, right? In this case, you have the cube. A cube is the three-dimensional form of the square, right? The geometrical square. The geometrical square is simply a surface. It's two-dimensional. That's all it is. So when you're dealing with creation as a whole, look at yourself. You could look at me on the camera. I'm a three-dimensional figure. Everything in creation in real life is three-dimensional. But in order to become three-dimensional, it has to progress through these four stages mentioned here. The point, to the line, to the superficies or surface, to the solid. Four stages. If you study Kabbalah, right, which you should if you're a Mason, because Kabbalah is the esoteric or secret teachings of Christianity and Judaism. So if you're studying the Bible, which is a symbol of Masonry, you should study the Kabbalah. You have to if you want to understand the Bible. And in the Kabbalah, you have this symbol here, which is called the Tree of Life, right? 10 circles called the 10 Sefirot, united by 22 lines, which correspond to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Right? So you have this, the Tree of Life. And within the Tree of Life, you have what are known as four worlds or four stages of creation. The Tree of Life, by the way, symbolizes the universe as a whole, and it also symbolizes you as the human being, according to the Hermetic principle of correspondence or analogy, which teaches us that man or the human being is the universe in miniature, because the same laws that govern the universe as a whole also govern man. The same law, they're universal laws of nature that operate all throughout nature. The universe is one. That's the point. So with the Tree of Life diagram, you have 10 Sefirot, 22 lines, right, which connect the 10 Sefirot and which correspond to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Remember that the Holy Bible in the Old Testament, quote unquote, the scriptures are written in Hebrew, right? So this is a key to understanding the scriptures of the Bible. But anyway, in this diagram, there are four worlds, right? Four worlds, which are four stages of creation. And they have certain names in the Kabbalah. But to make it very simple for you, if you want to understand what those four worlds or four stages of creation are, all you have to do is refer to geometry. The four stages of creation as far as geometry is concerned. Anything that is created, whether it's a human being, a plant, a tree, a planet, etc. Any creation has to go through four stages geometrically. From the point, which represents universal infinite consciousness, primordial consciousness, to a line consisting of 2 points, if you understand geometry, that represents polarity, when polarity comes into place as far as creation is concerned. Then to a superficies or a surface, which is two-dimensional, and then to a solid. So there are always four stages in creation, always. Four basic stages of creation, mathematically, as far as mathematics are concerned. And Freemasonry, again, is symbolic mathematics. The universe is mathematical. Everything can be understood through number. Everything. Everything can be understood through number. And when you study the ancient initiates as well as the ancient scientists, if you want to use that, the free thinkers of the Enlightenment period of European history, etc. Everyone understood that mathematics, I'm not saying everyone, but the enlightened individuals, everybody who was enlightened understood that mathematics is essential to understanding your existence. Everybody. So when you look at masonry and you look at the emblem, again, the compass and the square, these are geometric tools used for creating geometrical figures. So when you see social club masons in the streets or in the world and they wear the emblem, or let's say you'll see like, oh, you look at them and be like, oh yeah, boom, they wearing the ring, the square and the compass, but know nothing about mathematics. Really? Really? So you have to know how to use these tools, and I'll show them again. The compass, which is used for drawing a circle in geometry, and the square, which is used for, drawing or creating the geometric square. You have to know how to use those tools. So to be a Mason, in short, represents being a creator. So let's get into those basic tools. Let's get into the basic tools really quickly. You have, as I mentioned, right, as far as two-dimensional figures are concerned, plane geometry. You have the geometric square, which is four-sided, right? You got Martin's World. I'm a freelance Mason. No, you're not, bro. If you was a real Mason, you interact with every Freemason on the planet. There's no you're a freelance Mason. No, so there's none of that. But anyway, so you have the geometric square, right? It's four-sided. Now, the geometric square in symbolic geometry is symbolic of the earth, which is the below, the physical plane, right? Everything that is concerned with physicality, because the earth, even though the earth is a sphere, it appears to be flat when you're walking upon it. And I don't want to cause any kind of like beef. I don't want to say beef. I don't want to cause any kind of like strife when it comes to people that are called flat earthers. That's what they're called. You have people that are called flat earthers nowadays. They believe that the earth is flat. Literally, that's what they believe. And masonry is not dogmatic. Just study. Go through the curriculum. Go through the curriculum and study. It's like, let's say right now, I'm in New York City, right? It's dark out here. We're in the AM hours over here in New York City. Let's say, um, it was 8 p.m. over here, right? A few hours ago. Let's say it was 8 p.m. and I'm speaking to my brother Tony Hawkins, who's in San Diego, California. They have a 3-hour time difference. California, there's a 3-hour time difference. So let's say it was 7 p.m. over here. Let's just say. So it's 7 p.m. over here. At 7 p.m. over here in New York City, in this season, it will be dark outside. It's not going to be light out. It's going to be dark over here right now in this season. And I'll be speaking to brother Tony Hawkins in his zone, which is California, San Diego, California in particular. It would be at that time, if it's 7 over here, for him, it would be 4 p.m., right? And it would be daylight out there. I already know this. I could speak to him on FaceTime. It'll be 7 p.m. over here right now, and it will be dark outside. And for him, he's in California, San Diego. At 4 p.m., it's a 3-hour time difference. it'll be light outside. It'll be daytime still. So why is it nighttime over here at 7 p.m. right now and daylight for him, 4 p.m., but we're speaking to each other at the same time. If the earth is flat, there should be, if the earth is flat, there should be sunshine all throughout the earth at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Um, so anyway, I don't mean to get into no type of debate with the so-called flat earthers. It's just it's not gonna add up if you understand geometry, you know? So but anyway, the square in symbolic geometry is emblematic or symbolic of the earth. The earth appears to be flat as a plane, right? So the square symbolizes the earth, the physical aspects of oneself, right? And that's represented in Freemasonry by the tool known as the square because it is used to establish right angles. You understand? If you wanted to create a square, a geometric square, you sit there and you use the tool known as a square, right? So again, it's emblematic. We know, like this guy just said here, we know that the earth is round. Duh. No question, genius. But symbolically speaking, the surface of the earth appears to be flat. Right? Cool. Now, the heavens or the above appears to be round. And that's symbolized by the circle. If you look at the circle in geometry, it appears to have no beginning and no end. If you wanted to create a circle in geometry, right? Of course, the tool that you would use is the compass, right? You use this tool to draw the circle or create it, the compass. Now, because the circle appears to have no beginning and no end, it is symbolic of the eternal aspect of yourself. The eternal aspect of yourself, God, which has no beginning, no end. It is eternal. It goes round and round and round and round. The heavens are like that if you study the sky, if you study the stars. The heavens appear to move in a circular motion. That's what they appear to do. So in symbolic mathematics or symbolic geometry, you have those two basic figures, the square and the circle. In Freemasonry, those are symbolized by the compass and the square. One symbolizes the physical aspect or the finite aspect of creation, and the other figure, which is the circle, symbolizes the infinite aspect of creation, the divine, God. And those two are really as one, two aspects of one thing. And you'll see that here, compass and the square. And then you have the G in the middle. If you look at the G in the middle, the letter G, the English letter G, appears to be composed of a curved line, which is the main element of a circle. That's basic. And a right angle here, which is the basic element of the geometric square. So in the letter G itself, you have a combination of the circle and the square, or the compass and the square. Furthermore, the letter G is the seventh letter in the English alphabet, and the letter 7 esoterically represents the highest rate of vibration as far as energy is concerned. All energy vibrates in rates of 7 overall. Malcolm Prophet says, I have the star chart app. I study the earth and everything in it, and the stars, moon, the sun, the universe, which is cool. Keep studying, bro. So you have those figures. Then you have triangle in plane geometry as far as symbolic geometry is concerned. And the triangle signifies energy in its essence. just as the circle does. But when energy manifests, when polarity occurs in creation, you have the Trinity, right? All energy is one thing, but it has three aspects of manifestation: active energy, passive energy, neutral energy. All energy manifests like that. So with the triangle, you have the number three. And the number three is going to be synonymous with the number one as far as symbolic mathematics are concerned. Because in order to understand the unity of all things, which the number one symbolizes, you will have to understand the law of polarity and the Trinity principle. So those are the basic symbols we have in plane geometry. Those that I mentioned. This, besides the of course the point, the line, the superficies, and the solid. But as far as two-dimensional figures are concerned, you have the circle, the triangle, the square. Those figures are important in symbolic geometry. When you get into the second degree of Freemasonry, you'll start dealing with solid geometry or three-dimensional figures, such as the Platonic solids like the tetrahedron, the cube, um, the dodecahedron, the icosahedron, and so on and so forth. Uh, so symbolic mathematics are important. Now let's deal with numbers. You know, the numbers, the symbolic meanings of numbers in Freemasonry and sacred geometry. For those who are from the urban areas, I'll say. I'm in New York City. You have Masons in different urban areas, let's say like Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, whatever. There's a movement. It's the movement has been out for decades now, called the Nation of Gods and Earths. They were a break off of the Nation of Islam, a break off, and they deal with symbolic mathematics, like the rapper Nas. Whoever's familiar with rap, you know, hip hop music, like the rapper Nas, he's a member of the Nation of Gods and Earths. There was an old rapper named Rakim way before him. Outkast, you know, I don't know if you know about Outkast, the rap group called Outkast. There's plenty of Erica Badu, the singer. There's plenty of members of the Nation of Gods and Earths and the entertainment industry. They're heavy on that symbolic mathematics. They're heavy on that. Their founder, who his name was Clarence Smith, you know, he taught them this. In esoteric studies, we could call symbolic mathematics numerology, arithmology. They're different names we use. But anyway, in order to understand numerology or arithmology, you have to understand geometry. Arithmetic is basic mathematics. Geometry is a more advanced form of mathematics. But in order to understand numerology, like what certain numbers mean in the ancient mysteries, you have to understand geometry. You have to. Otherwise, you'll just attribute anything to any number and you won't know better. Pythagoras, maybe I mentioned Pythagoras in the last live stream that got cut off. But Pythagoras, who's mentioned in Masonic ritual. Let me see, as a matter of fact. Maybe I'm bugging, maybe I'm not. I'm not bugging, I'm being funny right now. But most Masonic rituals mention Pythagoras. Let me see, like in most rituals of the third degree of Freemasonry in America, at least. Don't feel any type of way if you're a Freemason that's in England or anything like that. In America, we have our usual way of doing things. But in the third degree of Freemasonry, in the ritual rather, of the third degree, in regards to the 47th problem of Euclid, The ritual states that the 47th problem of Euclid was an invention of our ancient friend and brother, the great, the 47th problem of Euclid was an invention of our ancient friend and brother, the great Pythagoras, who, in his travels through Asia, Africa, and Europe, was initiated into several orders of priesthood and raised to the sublime degree of a master mason. This theorem is that in any right angled triangle, the square which is described upon the side subtending the right angle is equal to the squares described upon the sides which contain the right angle, right? And it references Euclid, Proposition 47. That's the book is known as the Elements, or Elements rather, by Euclid. Okay, this wise philosopher, meaning Pythagoras, enriched his mind abundantly in the general knowledge of things, and more especially in geometry or masonry. On this subject, he drew out many problems and theorems, and among the most distinguished, he erected this, which, in the joy of his heart, he called Eureka, in the Greek language signifying, I have found it, and upon the discovery of which he is said to have sacrificed a hecatomb. It teaches Masons to be general lovers of the arts and sciences. All right, okay, so I talked about Pythagoras there. Every Mason knows this if you're a Freemason. Geometry and Freemasonry are synonymous terms, but you have to go into the esoteric meaning of geometry. This is why Pythagoras is mentioned in our rituals. Pythagoras was a mystic. Study him. Google Pythagoras, go into his teachings, etc. And he in his teachings, he gave symbolic significance to the numbers of the mathematical alphabet, quote unquote, geometrical figures, etc. So in order to understand the symbolic meaning of certain numbers, you have to understand geometry and you have to understand arithmetic. Those are the two basic branches of mathematics. You have to, and you have to know how to apply that to creation yourself as an individual. If you're a Freemason and you're running around, or you think you're a Freemason and you're running around saying, "Oh, 357, brother," or 753, what does that mean? If you don't know what that means, stop doing that. Know what it means. Study it. This is simple. In order to understand what it means, you have to study mystical mathematics, symbolic geometry, symbolic arithmetic. You have to study that. And if you study Pythagoras, you'll get a good understanding. So as far as the numbers of the so-called mathematical alphabet are concerned, you have to advance to an understanding of geometry and then look back to arithmetic. So let's say with geometry, I mentioned earlier, you have in the 4 stages of creation, you have the point, right? Which is a unit. It symbolizes the number 1. It also symbolizes the number 0. The number 1 and the number 0 are not really different as far as their meanings are concerned. They're really not. But anyway, you have the point, which represents dimensionlessness. If you're studying geometry, if you see this figure, it represents that which has no dimension. There's no manifestation of length, width, height, anything. It's pure existence with no differentiation, pure existence, our origin. That's symbolized by the number 1. And it's also symbolized by the number 0, if you want to call 0 a number. So the number 1, when you're dealing with symbolic mathematics, represents unity, union, oneness of all things. When you're dealing with the number 2, and remember, I'm using geometry to give you this understanding. you have the line from a point to a line. Remember, a line consists of 2 points. So from unity, the point, you progress and have as far as the unfoldment of existence and creation. From the point, you have the line, which consists of 2 points that represents polarity, duality. If you study Hermetic philosophy, Hermetic science, you already know there's a law called the law of polarity, which teaches us that there is that there are opposites in nature. It's a basic principle of manifested creation. The law of polarity, left, right, up, down, male, female, hot, cold, light, darkness, existence, non-existence, so on and so forth. Real, it's real like that. So the number 2, when you're dealing with symbolic mathematics, represents polarity, duality. The number 3 represents what I told you it already represents. It represents the union between union and polarity, which is that understanding. When you understand that the universe is one thing, but there's a law of polarity that allows for creation to manifest. That's what the number 3 represents. And it's synonymous with the number 1 because in order to understand the number 1 symbolically, you have to understand the number 3 symbolically. You have to. This is why you'll see in occultism, especially in America, that the number 13 is the number 13 composed of the numbers 1 and 3 is very significant. Significant on a dollar bill that you probably carry in your pocket. It's very significant. The number 4, you have to apply that to geometry. What did I say the number 4 represents in geometry? Which is when you go beyond arithmetic. Number 4 in geometry is going to represent the square, the geometric square. It's 4-sided. That represents the physical aspect of things, the physical aspect of you, of man. Then from the number 4, you go on to the number 5. In geometry, you have the pentagram. And the pentagram is symbolic of the so-called 5th element, which is called quintessence, ether, spirit, the essence of all of the 4 elements of the ancients. And of course, the 4 elements, that's another thing. The 4 elements are associated with the square: earth, air, fire, water. So the pentagram is the essence of the 4 elements. All things are one thing. If you study the Emerald Tablet and Hermetic philosophy, if you're a Freemason, I won't say a 1st degree Mason, but if you're a 2nd degree Mason or higher, you should definitely be familiar with the Emerald Tablet and all of Hermetic philosophy. Then that's the number 5. Then with the number 6, if you apply that to geometry, you have the geometric figure known as the hexagram, which is composed of 2 triangles. And, a regular equilateral triangle and an inverted equilateral triangle. And that symbol, of course, alludes to this symbol, the square and the compass. Look at the hexagram, which represents equality, by the way. It represents the union of the regular equilateral triangle upright, which represents masculinity, and the inverted equilateral triangle, which represents femininity, or active energy and passive energy. It represents union. It's just a progression from what is symbolized by the pentagram or spirit. It's a higher level. You're moving up now. as far as the progression of these geometrical figures. So if you look at the hexagram, you see the same thing alluded to by the square and the compass in masonry. If you draw a horizontal line across the square, you get an inverted triangle. And if you do the same thing to the compass, you get you will get an upright triangle. You get the 6-pointed star, which represents balance or equilibrium. It's a fact, right? So now when you start moving higher in geometry, you have a so-called star, if you want to call it that, that will represent the number 7. Same thing for the number 8, and the same thing for the number 9. You really would if you go higher, but just as far as dealing with the numbers themselves and arithmology, after 6 you have the number 7, and the number 7 when you're dealing with energy. Let's say you take light, pass light through a prism. Light is going to divide into 7 colors. The 7 colors of the rainbow, quote unquote. That's how a rainbow was formed in nature. It's formed through light passing through a prism. If you see a rainbow in the sky, that's how it's formed, through light passing through a prism. You're going to get 7 colors, which shows you that light vibrates in frequencies of 7. If you study music, sound vibrates in frequencies of 7. I Am That I Am says the 7 chakras. That's a fact. Study the universe. Know thyself. Know yourself. 7. So the point is that light is emblematic of consciousness. There's 7 rates of vibration in light. When you reach the 7th vibration, that represents God consciousness. When you reach the highest level of understanding, you'll see it in the book of Genesis when it says God. Actually, it says the Elohim, the gods, in the plural. But it says God rested on the 7th day. Creation took place in 7 phases or 7 stages. And on the 7th stage, the 7th phase, God rested. That's significance, even the word rest. It means that when you bring your consciousness or your mind to a state of rest, you achieve God consciousness. Only the man or the woman, the human being, can achieve to God consciousness. In the animal kingdom, you can disagree with that if you want to disagree with it. But evolution has produced something in the evolution of consciousness that could understand its own self. That is man. God becomes all of creation, and then God evolves in stages and degrees. God becomes the different animals you see, the different plants you see, the different elements you see in nature, and finally evolves itself into a form or being called man, which can finally understand what God is. Real, it's real like that. So you have the number 7. Then you have the number 8. Like you take the nation of gods and earths, good brothers and good sisters, and some of them really do understand their whole philosophy. With the nation of gods and earths, they give meaning to the various numbers of the mathematical alphabet. And for them, they'll say that the number 8 symbolizes build or destroy. But a lot of them, I'm not going to say most of them, but a lot of them cannot break that down from an inner understanding, a true understanding. Why is 8 said to be symbolic of build or destroy? Again, study light, study sound. When you study the music scale, you'll see that you have 7 notes. After the 7th note, you have what is known as the octave, or the 8th note, in which the first note repeats itself. It repeats itself. So the number 8 is like a rebirth. You know what I mean? It's a rebirth in the cycle of evolution. You just have to study. Look at the figure 8 itself and you'll see that, like, okay, interesting. In the Masonry, we have that symbol too. We don't have it in all of the American lodges, but in the French lodges, for sure, we have the tie knot, which represents a figure 8, number 8. Then after 8, you have the number 9. And if you understand energy, which everything is energy, you'll understand that. Once again, everything in nature is a trinity. Matter of fact, let me see, like today, we were given an examination to some entered apprentices. This is basic. This is not even a real examination. This is like for new, new entered apprentices. And we have various different examinations. This is like a very basic examination dealing with Masonic customs. And in question number 12, in this particular examination, which deals with Masonic customs, and it's very basic. It's so basic a child can understand it, but it's for, again, entered apprentices that are just starting out. It says, which number is the most often seen, heard, and used within Freemasonry? And the answer is 3. Every entered apprentice is not going to know that in the beginning, you know what I mean? In the beginning stages. But if you've been a Mason for some time, you don't have to be a Mason for that long. But if somebody asks you, it's not a catechism question to answer, but which number is the most often seen, heard, and used within Freemasonry? That would be 3. There are 3 degrees. 3 great pillars that support and uphold the lodge. 3 lights. Those 3 lights are divided into 3 great lights and 3 lesser lights. There are 3 jewels in the lodge. Those 3 jewels are divided into 3 immovable jewels and 3 movable jewels. And the list goes on and on and on and on when you're dealing with the number 3 in Freemasonry. Because the number 3, go back to what I said in the beginning of this, or towards the beginning of this episode. 3 is emblematic of the Trinity, which is nature, the universe, God. God, the universe, is a trinity: active energy, passive energy, neutral energy. You can state that otherwise as being masculine energy, feminine energy, androgynous energy. It's how nature works. It's not that complex. It's not that hard. But when you can connect the dots and put everything together through Masonic initiation, you'll understand and you'll be able to create and build as you should be able to build as a God, as a creator. Life is beautiful. You have some young brothers and sisters nowadays that are not even Masons. They're young. I'm saying young, not even old enough to be initiated into Freemasonry formally. And they've experienced so much in life and have seen so much in life that they almost seem to be sociopathic to, to a lot of people. They'll be like, yo, these youth, man, they don't even react to death. Or they don't, but they're very wise a lot of times. They're very wise because they're young, but they've seen a lot. And if you ask them and you sit there and you talk to them, they'll be like, you know what I'm saying? I've seen a lot, and life is what it is. You know what I'm saying? People die, people live. What do you want me to do about it? So life is a cycle. Life is not that hard to understand, you know? And Masonry gives us a better understanding of life. It helps us to make life what we want it to be. And we can do that if we study. So anyway, the number 9, that's the last number I left off on. When you deal with the Trinity, the number 3, When you understand that everything in nature is a trinity, you'll understand that you have within each part of a trinity. Let me just show you the triangle. Maybe you could get a better understanding than that. Each side of the triangle or each point represents, again, one of the three basic aspects of all energy: active energy, neutral energy, passive energy, masculine, feminine, neutral. So when you understand that all is all, bro, or sis, when you understand that, you'll understand this. Let's say you take this point, which would, let's just say hypothetically, would represent the masculine energy. In this point or aspect of a trinity, the masculine is also contained the feminine, the neutral. All of these three aspects are in this one aspect because all is one, all is all comes from one source. Let's say this is the masculine. In the masculine, you're going to have these other 2 points contained within this one point. And likewise for this point, these other 2 points will be contained within it also. So from 3, you get 3 times 3, which is 9, which represent that completion, the whole total completion of understanding of your true self. And that's why when you study Masonry, we have grand honors in Freemasonry. I'm not going to go into that, but I'll mention it because I'm not going to say every Freemason, but most Freemasons will be familiar with it. The grand honors, 3 times 3. If you're a Royal Arch Mason, which is an add-on degree, right? The Royal Lodge, the Red House, the Red Lodge, the chapter. You're definitely going to be familiar with 3 times 3. If you practice witchcraft, which is another ancient mystery school, you're going to be familiar with 3 times 3 and the power of 3 times 3. So everything I mentioned here as far as the symbolic meaning of numbers, geometrical figures is basic. All of this is real basic. Deals with the basic aspects of symbolic geometry, symbolic mathematics. And I'll recommend here again, like brother J.D. Buck. He wrote the book called Mystic Masonry, one of my favorite books of all time as far as Freemasonry is concerned. And I wish I knew the quote off top. Like I memorize a lot of things off top, but I don't I haven't memorized his whole book like front to back. But some of the parts of his book I've memorized because I've read the book so many times. He talks about Masonic mathematics in a certain part, and he's like, basically he states how that there's power in mathematics and how Masonic ritual in the blue degrees enter the apprentice fellowcraft master mason. I used to practice with my tarot cards and do readings when anyone wished to see. Yeah, tarot is dope. Tarot cards for sure. But brother J.D. Buck mentions as to how the power of mathematics is alluded to in the rituals of the blue degrees. But it's not blatantly stated, but it's there. And you as a Mason, you have to study, go deeper into it, and you'll see like there's power in numbers. So we have, sacred geometry in general. What I presented here is basic plain geometry, not solid geometry. Solid geometry is for the 2nd degree of Freemasonry, the fellowcraft degree. That's when you start getting into the golden ratio, which is the divine proportion, the vesica piscis, the 5 Platonic solids mentioned in the dialogues of Brother Plato. But in the 1st degree of Freemasonry, you're really just dealing with plain geometry. the point, the line, the superficies or the surface, the solid, in a general sense, the circle, the triangle, the square. You have to know those things, man. You have to. When you wear this emblem, when you look at the Masonic emblem, you have a square and a compass and the letter G in the center. One of the meanings of the letter G is geometry. You have to be a mathematician, a geometrician. That means a creator. That's why I say on this channel, like, for all Blue Majestic Masons know this. But for the new one, for the new brothers and sisters coming into Blue Majestic Masonry, when you see these social club Masons, shun them. That's a fact. Discountenance them because they perpetrate, they're perpetrating a fraud. Like, you wearing a whole square and compass, mathematical instruments, and don't understand mathematics, or you don't know how that relates to your ability, not your ability, or your rather your nature as being a creator or a god. With the square and the compass, geometrically, these two tools, you take a compass and you take a square, you can build, or you can create rather, any figure, any geometrical figure in the creation of the world with a compass used for drawing circles and a square. You can create any figure, any geometrical figure you can think of, and everything in this universe is geometrical. Everything. So to be a Mason, when you see this emblem, the square and the compass, is to say that I have power and control over these tools right here. These tools represent myself. I'm a creator. I'm a builder. So, again, you have certain brothers, coming to mainstream Masonry, a social club Masonry, unknowingly. That's the first thing they've encountered. So they came into it. Their intentions were pure. They were good. So for those brothers, this wouldn't apply to them. You know what I mean? Their intentions are pure. You can build further, travel, journey, etc. Towards the light. But as for the other individuals, it's like, like really, you know what I mean? Like, come on, man. So that's what this whole episode is based on. Masonic Mathematics. Study Brother Pythagoras. Of course, study Euclid. And just study. It's very deep. You're gonna learn a lot. Go deeper into the craft. For all Blue Majestic Masons, we, of course, we have a curriculum. We're deep, we go in. Our 3 degrees are so deep. And we keep building, we keep studying, and we do that. We're going to continue to do that. I am that I am. Those are the ones that give us the opportunity to give charity to helping them raise. Yeah, so our curriculum is tight. I had a good time earlier today dealing with, I mentioned to y'all earlier, the Eleusinian mysteries, and as they deal with the legend of, or the myth of, Persephone and Hades. Dope. The ancient Greek mysteries. Dope. We went in. Dope. So that's cool. And for all of those, again, as usual, who engage in the correspondence courses, is dope. With the Master Key System, fire. I stay with it. The Hermetic Philosophy courses, dope. Like today, I was doing certain work on the Hermetic Philosophy courses, and it keeps me engaged. Today, I was dealing with the parts of the correspondence course that deal with alchemy, because certain subscribers, they're at a certain point in which they're in the correspondence course. So what happened to be today when I was doing the work as far as corresponding with these particular individuals as far as the correspondence course. We were going into alchemy, the three phases of the work, and we talked about like you have three phases in the work of alchemy, which is a school of Hermetic philosophy, and Freemasonry comes from alchemy. you sh- you should know that if you're an advanced Mason. If you don't know that, you're young on the path. But anyway, you have the three traditional phases of alchemy: the black phase, the white phase, the red phase. That's traditional now. But also, prior to that, you have four phases, and you have certain alchemical schools or certain laboratories that still use four phases of the work. Four phases. Then we went into the seven traditional the seven traditional not phases but chemical operations of the work. And you have certain alchemists who don't only use seven chemical operations within the three phases, they'll use 12. So it was so deep. It's going into it, it's like, yo, it's a blessing. You know what I mean? It's a blessing. Alchemy is deep, strong. Of course, Freemasonry is. Freemasonry is a school of Hermetic philosophy, just as alchemy is. It's a beautiful thing, man. Going into the whole thing, and it's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. Everybody has families. I have a family. I gotta get money, just like anybody else does. But at the same time, it's like when you're doing this work to everybody who is on the channel who may be, let's say, a worshipful master. If you're a worshipful master of your lodge, or a senior warden, or a junior warden, or an officer of your Masonic lodge, I would say this: it's a blessing. Do the work. I know that, like, if you're a part of mainstream Masonry, I speak to certain brothers who are part of that, and they can't do what they want to do a lot of times. They can't. That's up to them. Your destiny is in your hand. Like me, I could be a part of mainstream Masonry anytime, any given time. It's not hard to be that. It's not. All you have to do is do the same thing that whoever's a part of it has done. You know? That's it. Fill out the application, pay for its process, go through the whole thing, go through sitting with the investigative committee, blah, 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 blah. You get in there, you can do that. But it's not for me personally. It's not. That's why I never joined it. That's why I never have. You know what I mean? Maybe if there was a traditional observance lodge where I was at that's mainstream, I would probably get down with it. But for what? Nah, I'm not spending my money, wasting my money on that garbage. Can't do what you want to do. No disrespect. Turn yourself into gold and being awesome. Absolutely. Transform yourself into gold. So anyway, the point is this: regardless of the fact, just do what you could do. If you're an officer, like if you're a worshipful master of the lodge, you know that you symbolize the sun in the east. If you're a senior warden, you symbolize the sun in the west. If you're a junior warden, you symbolize the sun in the south. And if you're a Mason in general, whether you have rank or you don't, you are still symbolic of the sun. Let your light shine. So I learned more and more. Like, this is not my first year of being worshipful master in my lodge. It's not my first year. But this year so far, I'm 22. That's the number of the letters in the Hebrew alphabet. That's the only scripture I haven't completed, and I'm studying at the moment. Cool, bro. So, in this year, like for us and my Masonic order, just as in Grand Orient Freemasonry, we start our new year in March. It's not like with mainstream Masonry, they'll start in either December or June or whatever, or one of the St. John's days. Yeah, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Yes, sir. So now I'm learning more in this term, that I'm serving as worshipful master in my lodge. I'm realizing more the importance of shining the light, putting the craft to work. Like you see in the ritual, we say one of the duties of the worshipful master is to put the craft to work. Just as the sun opens the day, you know what I mean? You have to open the lodge. Just as the sun opens the day, right? You have to open the lodge, set the craft to work. Gotta do that. Shine your light, and it's deep, it's dope. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But it's fulfilling work, and it's cool. And when you have when your officers, when your fellow officers are strong, like in my lodge, thank God, God bless. I would say like for Blue Majestic Masons, I would say I feel like our members in general, not just the officers, I feel like I don't know if you ever watched basketball, you know, or you may still watch basketball. But I remember when I was younger, I don't watch sports too much nowadays. But I remember when I was younger and I watched basketball and the All-Star games came around, you know, that season in which the All-Star games came around, you saw the best NBA basketball players. I feel like that with Blue Majestic Masonry. I look at my lodge and I say, listen, not just my lodge, but other lodges too of Blue Majestic Masonry. But I'm gonna say my lodge in particular. I look and I say, damn, like we strong, bro. We like all stars. We like Michael Jordan, Shaq, you know what I'm saying? Back in my time, Kobe Bryant, all of that in one. Like we solid, we strong. So I look at that, I'll be like, yeah, we got it. So for me, it makes things better for me um, in my position and doing the work. That I have a senior warden that, you know, I could lean upon, you know, to make the work stronger. I have a junior warden whom I could lean upon to make the work stronger. And just the craftsmen and the craftswomen in general. We strong, for real. So I sit there and I enjoy the work, and it's like, wow, there's so much work to do. It never stops, you know, so much work to do, so much. But, you know, it's a blessing. And I'll say also, like, try to obviously get your family involved. Like with Blue Majestic Masons, we don't have Eastern Stars. We don't because we have female Masons. We have no reason to have Eastern Stars at all. Um, but if you want a so-called male craft, as they would call it, yeah, it's important, man, that your family and friends, but mostly your family are involved. I see why. The older I get in masonry, the more mature I become. I understand why. Because you know, you're still an individual paying bills, you know, working, earning a living, and then you have to tie masonry into all of that. And in order for that to work, you have to really make masonry, like a brother told me, um, not this time around, but years ago, the first time I served as worshipful master, he told me that he was like, yo, you gotta make masonry like when you're serving as worshipful master. He was like, you masonry has to become like the main priority in your life when you sit in the East, when you serve as worshipful master. And I was like, but he was right. It is, but it has to become the main priority. If it's not, and again, in order for it to become the main priority, you have to be able to know how to involve your family in it, even your children. It's like in Blue Majestic Masonry, part of our obligation, meaning our oaths and the 3 degrees, is that we have to teach our wisdom to our children, right? Or the youth that are under our tutelage or influence. So Like me, I don't have biological offspring just yet. I don't personally. I don't, but I have nieces, I have nephews, things like that. Um, so you have to spread the wisdom to them, and there's ways to do that. You don't have to say, oh yeah, Freemasonry per se, blah, blah, blah. No. Plenty of Freemasons have already paved the way prior to us. It's like if you look at Disney, the company, Disney started by Walt Disney, um, which I invest in that company as far as the stock market is concerned. There are a lot of things I invested in the stock market that don't even have anything to do with Masonry. But Disney is one of those companies I will always invest in. Even though they may do certain shit I don't like, pardon my French, like promoting homosexuality, I don't like that at all. I'm not for that. I won't support that. But people have their own ways they see shit. You know what I'm saying? Um, but overall, Disney, they put out content for youth to teach them the ancient mysteries in an indirect way. Like with the movie The Lion King. I may do an episode on that. I might, because it's so dope. The movie The Lion King is a preservation of the ancient Egyptian legend of the god Osiris, the goddess Isis, and the god Horus. No doubt about that. You got the main character, Mustafa. I said Mustafa. I'm thinking about a Muslim name. My bad. Mufasa. Sorry. So you got Mufasa. He's the main character. And then you got his brother, Scar. So Mufasa is like Osiris. Scar is like Set. Scar don't like his brother. He wants to kill him. He been plotting on him. And then you have Mufasa's son, Simba, who is like Horus. You know what I'm saying? And then, of course, Scar kills Mufasa, takes the throne, and exiles Simba, who was like Horus. And when Simba gets exiled, he gets a little bit of jewels and wisdom from Rafiki. Rafiki is a baboon. That alludes to the god Tahuti in ancient Egypt, who's the god with the ibis head, but he has a secondary form of the baboon. Point is, that's a whole other lecture. But with Disney, whether it's Cinderella, the Lion King, as I mentioned, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, they have all type of wisdom that they put into those movies that preserve the ancient mystery teachings for the youth. And in Blue Majestic Masonry, part of our obligation is to pass the wisdom to the youth. You know what I'm saying? So the point I'm making is that in serving in the capacity of just a Freemason in general, a Freemason, you should be teaching your kids. So when you do that, when you take Masonry to be that, you're good. You're not going to have a problem. Trust me. You'll be all right. You know what I'm saying? If you don't take it that way, you're going to be discouraged. You're going to be like, oh, man, Masonry takes up so much of my time. And then your life is going to go dark. You know what I'm saying? It's going to go dark. It's going to dissolve. You know what I'm saying? You're going to fall apart. It's going to fall apart if you just think you can sit back. Nah, man. We have a duty as Masons, and you have to enjoy the work. So anyway, I was told that years ago. I learned as I progressed, and now I would say during this term, um, it's a lot better. I get a lot more joy out of my Masonry, and I know that. Oh yeah, boom! I gotta wake up, even if I'm working my regular, job, or conducting side businesses or whatever. It's like, damn, I have to do this as far as Masonry. This is what I gotta do. We gotta work. We gotta shine the light. We have to be as the light of the lodge. We have to. We gotta do it. We can't half step with it. We gotta do it. We gotta love the work. We gotta enjoy the work. And then we're gonna be good. And trust me, you'll see it. You'll see it in your kids. You'll see it in your community. I've seen it throughout my whole Masonic career. And if you don't do it like that, you're gonna be of no effect. You know what I'm saying? You just gonna be like ice, no life. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna shine like the sun. Nothing's gonna come out of what you're doing. You know, nothing is gonna come out of what you're doing. You're just gonna run masonry as a social club, and as I mentioned in various other episodes, where Blue Majestic Masons are, we not goons, we not thugs, we not ruffians and none of that, but we're very serious about our masonry. You know, like in my area now, if had I happened to see certain masons doing that, or so-called masons, playing around with it, wearing t-shirts and hats with the square and compass, and they just joking, bro, I would shut them down. Not just me, my my whole life, just a fact. I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to sound like an idiot, but I'm telling you the short fact. Would come out on the block and shut them down, bro. Like, you're not out, and they're not gonna operate. I've done it before. You know what I'm saying? We've done it before. Stripped individuals of their square and compass, their regalia, all of that. Like, nah, you're not. And that's because of that. Nah. So this is not that. But anyway, though, with that, thanks for everybody who watched. Thanks for everybody who came on. Once again, to the brother, Rodrigo Diaz. If you see this episode, my brother, I'm going to reply to the message you sent me. But if you see this episode, leave me your email address. My email address is here. Download WhatsApp. So I'll send you books. I'll definitely send you books. And not just that, I'll send you mail articles, because books are not always the best thing to send. Sometimes you just want to read really quickly. You know what I mean? I'll send you that. And also, I know how it is when you're out there. Maybe a little hard sometimes. I'll send you a care package, or I'll get certain, brothers and sisters in my lodge to come together and put together a little fund. I'll send you some things, so you can eat good, whatever, and you'll be all right out there. And as well as some literature and material. But definitely like send something via email, because that'll make it a little easy. Like, we won't have to pay for a physical bin if that's the case. Besides, sending out maybe, like food packages and stuff like that you may need, or some clothes and stuff. So anyway, though, and again, shout out to brother Cameron Irving. So with that, I'm out of here. Peace, love, light, loyalty. On the next episode, I come up with something deep. Once again, continue to contribute to the correspondence courses. Donate to the channel, like the channel, share the channel, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to my brother, Gary Palmer, who his channel is called Esoteric Man. Fire, dope. His channel is fire. I love it. Him, and the brother who has a channel, Beyond Freemasonry. Beyond Freemasonry. It just started up, so please support that. Whoever supports me, please support those two channels. Just subscribe. Trust me, you'll love the channels. So Esoteric Man and Beyond Freemasonry. And with that, on the square, peace. I send you my utmost brotherly love. God bless you. God bless your family. Keep striving and searching for the light. Peace.